Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis will begin at Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the bottom at the end of the line. According to Rav Yehuda, he says that according to everyone, that if it's an ordinary warehouse, if it's stama, it doesn't have a particular use, the residential or a use of COVID, then we would say that it's not considered a house, a bayis to be b'chayv mezuzah, it's potter. Is that true that l'divrei hakol, according to everybody, that a stam warehouse, a general purpose, ordinary warehouse, is potter from mezuzah? We learned the brayso b'sharecha. It says that you have to write the mezuzahs on the mezuzahs of your gates. B'sharecha echad sharei batim. That means that whether the gates of houses, v'echad sharei chatzeres or chatzeres, or v'echad sharei medinais, or whether in the gates of the provinces, v'echad sharei ayorais, v'refes, or a stable, v'lulin, or chicken coops, umatven, or a area that they store straw. It's a storehouse for straw, v'oisr shel yain, or storehouses for wine, v'oisr shemen, or for oil, chayavim b'mezuzah. All of these are chayav b'mezuzah. So it says all of these places, and it also says storehouses are chayav mezuzah. Yochol sh'ani marbe. You might think that I will also therefore include beis sha'ar, a gatehouse. So a gatehouse is a gateway into a courtyard. The people enter through that gateway into a courtyard. Or Hofstedter is a similar type of idea. It's in the front of the house, and Hofstedter is an area that's enclosed on usually 3 sides. The 4th side is open, so it's like an entranceway to come into the house. It's open on one side. It's an entranceway into the house. So, or mirpeses, which is a gallery, which is they have on a type of a balcony. If you have a 2-story type of motel or apartment structure, that the people come up to the 2nd level, and there's a walkway which they can enter the separate apartments or the separate areas, the separate rooms. So it's a walkway that they walk through there, and they enter into the apartments. So you might think even those type of gateways need a mezuzah. Talmud loymar bayis, it says bayis. Ma bayis miyuchad l'dira, just like a bayis is miyuchad l'dira. Yatsu elu she'ein miyuchad l'dira, but these are not miyuchad l'dira. So therefore, they're potter on the mezuzah. They're potter from the mezuzah. There's a machlekes rishonim. What does that mean? According to some Rishonim, it means that they're potter from the mezuzah. That means that only that if they don't lead into a house, let's say a rif, Tosfos brings down the rif, that only if these areas, these small entrances, lead to an area where there are no houses. So people aren't living there, they don't have proper batim. But if they have houses, then they're no different than any, like a shar v'chatzer. Shar v'chatzer leads into a courtyard that it leads into houses, so they all shouldn't be chayv. Other Rishonim learn not that way, that these types of entranceways are not considered to be proper entranceways, and that's the Rashi and Tosfos, they're potter from mezuzah regardless. But Akol Panim, so it says that these areas are potter. Yochol shani mar ba'av, I might think that I may include for a mezuzah that even beis hakisei, a beis hakisei, beis haburskei, a tannery, a beis hamerchatz, a bathhouse, a beis tefillah, a house where there's a mikveh, Talmud loymer bayis. It says bayis. Ma bayis also l'kovod. It's only an area where it's used in a dignified way. Of kol also l'kovod. Yotzer elu she'en asum l'kovod. It excludes these areas which are not used for COVID. Either there's a foul odor, or that people are not dressed over there. So over there, there's no chiyuv mezuzah. Yochol shani mar ba'av harabayas. You might think that I would include for the chiyuv mezuzah even the harabayas, the azoras, and the azora, the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. Talmud loymer bayis. It says bayis. Ma bayis shu chol. A house, a general, regular house, is chol, is used for regular activity. Of course, shu chol. Yotze elo she'ein kodesh, but it excludes these areas, which these areas are kodesh, and therefore they say that therefore these are potter from mezuzah. So we have the question that is dealt with Rishonim. We're saying that the Azora is potter from mezuzah. We learned previously that the Lishkos Parhedrin, which was in the Azora, where the Kohen Gadol is sequestered, there is a chiyuv of mezuzah. So how could it be that there's a chiyuv of mezuzah if it's in the Harabayas? So therefore, some Rishonim say, the Ritva says that that argues on this price. Others say that not that way. The Miri says not that way. He says that when we say the Harabayas, we say the Azor, the pot from mezuzah, that's only in the area that's used for Kodesh. That's used for a activity of Kodesh, but the Lishkas Parhedrin, even though it happened to be in the Azara, but it was used for the sleeping quarters, the living quarters of the Kohen Gadol. So it was used as a regular bias, so it would have a chiyuv of mezuzah. So, but I'll call upon him. What do we see over here? But nevertheless, we see over here that this Tana says that storehouses are chayiv mezuzah. That a storehouse is chayiv mezuzah. So therefore, it's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda, who says that L'kuli Alma, that the storehouses, store oysters, are potter from mezuzah tiyufta. It's a tiyufta Rabbi Yehuda. There's 6 gates that are part of the mezuzah. Beis HaTeven, storehouse for straw. Beis HaBakar, a barn. Beis HaEzim, for wood. Beis HaOitzros, and a storage house, a general storage house that is used for general items. Beis HaOitzros, Shar HaModai, and a Shar HaModai. What the significance of Shar HaModai is that it had a curved, arched roof. It wasn't straight. So, according to the way the Ritva explains it, is that to be chayv with the mezuzah, it has to be in the typical mezuzah. You have 2 mezuzahs and a mashkaf, which is straight, and a horizontal mashkaf. A curved area, there's no chiyuv of mezuzah. And now the Gemara shortly will explain the details of this halacha. So therefore, the Beis HaModai is also potter. Ushar she'ena makura. It has 2 posts. It doesn't have a lintel. It doesn't have a horizontal beam. There's no roof. Ushar she'ena gavei asara. And a gate that doesn't have mezuzahs that are 10 high, it's not 10 high. That's not called to be an entranceway. That's not a pesach. That's not a shar. Those things, all these things, are potter from mezuzah. Tezishana points out that it is Tana V'Shayr. It's not complete because, of course, we have the other areas that are also potter from mezuzah, the Beis HaKisei, the merchatz, etc. So Amrle, in fact, the Gemara asks Amrle b'zakta b'shisha v'salakta b'shiva. You said that there's 6, and in the list there are in fact 7. Amrle, he said, Sharamadi Tanoi. The Sharamadi is the Machlekes Tanoi. The sign we learned in the Brisa Kippah, if you have a dome, an arched, curved entranceway. Rabbi Meir Mechai Mezuzah. Rabbi Meir says there's a Chiv Mezuzah Chachamim Poichim Mecham Seir Potter. Now the Gemara is going to qualify what is this machlekes over here. Now Vishavin, they both agree Vishavin She'im Yesh Baragala Soram, that if there's 10, that the mezuzahs, the side posts, are 10 high before it arches. So it's 10 high, and at this point it doesn't arch yet, so it goes straight up. And then above a height of 10, that's when it starts to curve. It comes to a dome. So everyone agrees over there that it's chayav mezuzah, because you look at it as it's 10, you disregard the arch and look at the lintel as the point above the arch, which is straight, and that's your lintel. You just disregard the curved portion of the lintel. So there, everybody agrees that it's chayav mezuzah. You have a proper entranceway of 2 side posts that are 10 high and a straight lintel across. Omar Abaye further clarifies it. He says, the kuli alma gavei asora. Everyone agrees that if the archway is 10 high, ve'ein bargla shloisha, but if the legs are not 3 before it narrows. So it's the archway itself is 10 or more high. It's 10 or more tachim high. But when it starts to narrow, then it's within 3 that it starts to narrow. So it comes up from the ground, and it starts to narrow already within 3 of the ground. So therefore, you don't have any area above 3, which is 4 wide. To be an archway, to be a Pesach rather, a gateway, it has to be that it's 4, at least 4 wide, a minimum of width of 4, and 10 high with the lintel. Now, if it starts to narrow within 3 of the ground, within 3 of the ground is Lovud, it's as if you don't have, it's as if you don't have any Pesach, you have nothing from the ground. So you don't have any area which is, you already have the beginnings of a Pesach. You have no, because the Pesach has to be 4 wide, and it has to be above 3 of the ground. If it already narrows within 3 of the ground, you don't even have the beginnings of a Pesach. So everyone agrees there's no chiyuv. Inami yesh baragla shleisha, or alternatively, even if there is a width of 3 above 3 tvachim high from the ground, but if the entire archway is not 10 high, then v'lav klumi, then it's not a Pesach. There's no chiyuv mezuzah. Whereas the machlekes leinechleku ela begavoya asara, where the archway is 10 high, but it is 10 or more high, v'yesh baragla shleish, and it has a width of 3, that above 3 tvachim from the ground. Ve'ein barach ba'arba, but it's not 4 tvachim high. It starts so it's not 4 tvachim wide. Rather, it's not 4 tvachim wide at the height of 10. So what's the machlekes? But v'yesh ba lochok lashlim l'arba, but there is enough of the solid part above. Right? It's in a wall. It's arched into a wall. So therefore, you have enough of an area above the arch that narrows. It narrows. You have above the area that narrows. You have this area here. So the question is, do we take the line straight up and imagine that it's carved out, and imagine that it's carved out over here, and have a straight line, which is 10 above the ground, and therefore effectively you have an opening of 10. So Rameir Savar Chaykim La'ashlam, he says, even though the space itself narrows, but Chaykikim, you imagine that it's carved out on top, and you're mashlam it for the shear. It now makes up, and you view it as you have the width of 10. The width of 4 rather, the width of 4 at a height of 10. Rabbanan Savra ein Chaykim Lahashlam. Ton Rabbanan, Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaYishu, Beis HaShutzim, Chayam Mezuzah. A shul, a Beis HaKnesses, and a house owned by a woman and by partners is Chayv Mezuzah. Fracting more Pshita, well, of course, why would I think otherwise? Where it says Mao, the same as the Pasuk says Beisecha. It says Beisecha, and that's a Lashon Zocher, V'loi Beisah, and not a Lashon Akeva, not Beisah. It doesn't say Beisech, it says Beisecha, it's a Lashon Zocher. I may think it's Dafka for a male, not for a female. Beisech v'lo batehem, it says in the singular and not in the plural. And so therefore, Kamash Malan, therefore it's coming to teach you that even though it's a nekeva, even though it's for plural, it's therefore you're still Chayiv Mezuzah. It's Chayiv Mezuzah nevertheless. Strictly more Ve'im HaChanami. Well, why now that you mentioned that, you say that, maybe that should be the case. How do I know that there is a Chayiv Mezuzah? The Pasuk says, "Laman yirba yemech v'mei v'nechem." It says, "Laman yirba yemech v'mei v'nechem." That in order to do this mitzvah for you to get long life. It's only them that need life, long life, men, not females, not rabbim, not shutfim. So therefore, you're chayv mezuzah. Ela beisecha lamale. So why does it say it beisecha? Why does it say it in that manner? Beisecha. Why does it say it in that manner that it could be confusing? It says the way you enter. When he enters, he puts his right foot forward. So therefore, he puts his right foot forward, and therefore the mezuzah is the way you enter, meaning it should be on your right side. Therefore, it's teaching you that that's the place that you put the mezuzah. The Rabbi Kiva asked the kasha that, well, you're saying the 100 boy chaye, and therefore marbe shutfim, even though normally we'd exclude them. Well, why don't we say the same thing by renters or someone who borrows a house? Say the same thing, that what don't they need life? So he leaves it with Tzarachi and Godel. The Rashash answers, he says that we're not marbe shutfim from the fact that laman yirbu, that they need life, that it gives you life. For that we wouldn't be marbe, because we would say that over there we're only marbe for something to a person where we would be in the category of a bias, of that it's in your house. The plural shutfim we would be marbe for that. It says beisecha, so we would only include beisecha that it has to be your house, so it has to be your ownership, and I would think it's only in the singular. However, it says laman yirbu yemechem in the plural, from the fact that it says that in the plural, will marbe that even shutfim, because they also have ownership of a house, even though they're plural. But somewhere where it's a rented house or a borrowed house, it's not your house. So therefore, we're not marbed, and you can't be marbed because they do need life, but it has to be your house. The starting point is that it has to be an ownership. If it's not an ownership, then there's no starting point to be chayiv in mezuzah. Tanya, we learned another brayz. Basic Hanes is a base shultun, base isha mitam bin goyim. There are types of houses. If there's a nega leprosy, it has to miss the goyim. Frekti more pshit. Of course, what's the havamina? It says mao the same. Uvo asher loy habayis. It says that he comes to the one that owns the house. That he comes to the kohen. Loy veloy lo. I might think it says asher loy. It's only for the zocher, of the male, not the female. Loy veloy lohen. Kamash malan. Maybe I should say that. No, it says that it put the tsaras will be placed in the house of your inheritance. So it's a house that a house, any house. It doesn't have to be a male's rather. It doesn't have to be a singular. In the house of Yerachuza. So frankly, more if that's the case, why does it say loy if it doesn't mean dafke his? It could be even hers or even theirs. Why does it say his? So the more answer is mi shemiyachad beisaloy. That tsaras, the leprosy, comes to the person who is loy habayis. That is me. He's talking about he's always interested in himself. It's mine. It's his house. Shein roitzel hashel kelav. He doesn't want to lend his kelim to other people, so he doesn't want to. V'omer shein lo, and gives an excuse that he says he doesn't have. Shein lo. So Kodesh Baruch Hu Mefarsamoy, Kodesh Baruch Hu publicizes and brings the tzaras, and he publicizes the fact because when there's a tzaras shemafanes beisai, and he has to clear out his house, and then people will see that he really does have it. He says ein loy, and really we'll see that people will see when he has to clear out his house that he has to clear out his house, and they see that he does have kelim, asher loy, he really has it. So therefore, that's why the leprosy comes to that type of person. So prat lemashal kelim lachir. This excludes the person who does lend out his kelim to other people, and he is generous, and that he doesn't keep it all for himself. There, the leprosy does not come.